Club live. We're live Q&A today. We got three of us today. We've got Ross. He's got some engine expertise, and some seat of the pants, garage learning. We've got our paint and body technician expert over here, and Terry Wright, and of course I get to be your host. Feel free to ask questions, whatever you want. Any car restoration topic you want to cover, I think we've got you covered tonight. I'm excited to have a good sized panel here to help and answer whatever questions you might have. You might want to check out we have a free download just below here, on setting points and setting your gap and dwell. Might want to check that out. Again, it's free, so it's got to be good. And with that, let's get started. Our first question tonight comes from Craig. He asked, do we have any advice for or against applying paintless dent removal to a 1969 Ford with original paint? He has 28,000 miles on the car, so it's got low mileage. It's a Torino Cobra fastback, so it's got lots of roof. And has a 2-inch dent in the roof just above the B pillar. Local businesses have looked at the dent and advised they could work it out, but could not guarantee the paint wouldn't crack. And I think that's, with any paint car, older classic car, you're going to find that a lot of guys are going to, most paintless dent repair guys on a car that old, the paint gets dry and brittle and stuff like that. There are stuff they can do to minimize that by using a heat gun to warm the paint. Sometimes they use lights, or sometimes they use a heat gun or some means to warm up the paint and the metal. It makes the metal easier to move, and it also makes the paint more pliable to avoid cracking. But I don't think anybody's going to guarantee you they won't crack the paint.
No, they're just covering their rear ends on that one, and because it could happen.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know exactly how well that paint's adhered to or what's happened to it to that point. And paint does get brittle when it gets harder. The older it is, and the more brittle it becomes.
Yeah, original paint. And it's probably lacquer.
Probably lacquer.
Yeah.
So it's I on the other hand, I wouldn't like I can see his point. I wouldn't want to be having a big dent in the roof of my car. I would probably, for me, I would take the shot.
I would too. I'd definitely rather.
I'd say I'd rather risk cracking my paint than look at my beautiful 28,000 mile car with a dent in it. And I would say I'd find somebody that's experienced in working on classic cars.
Thicker metal, for sure.
Yeah, thicker metal. So they got to be experienced to know that it doesn't move like the brand new stuff. That they keep getting thinner and thinner. It's surprising how thin some of the metal is now. But thicker metal and has done classic car repair before, so they know what to expect. They know how to minimize the possibility of it cracking. And just accept if it cracks, it's the risk you took.
Right.
But that does,
I'd take that risk for sure.
I would take that risk. Mm-hmm. And I know I've had some PDR work on some of my cars. And Ross, I know you had a car with the dimpliest quarter panels I've ever seen. And the PDR guy, when he was done,
he was good.
It looked butter smooth, it was nice. So I certainly wouldn't avoid it, but you probably, do a little research on the front end, find the right guy.
I think I'd be picky on the person that I have do it.
Yeah.
Do a lot of research on it and get some referrals maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And if you have those referrals, you got somebody you trust to do it, not just the first guy you find that does it, but somebody that you trust to do it, I wouldn't be afraid of it.
And I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't go with the cheapest guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a case where you're paying for, not having to repaint your whole,
Right.
the,
But I think it's doable, and I would do it.
I would do it. There you go. That's our
Take a
consensus.
chance.
We would all do it and take a shot, because I'd rather risk cracking my paint than drive around my low mileage car with a big dent in it. Let's see. And I'm sorry if I'm messing up the name. He has a Packard Hawk, and I believe that'd be like 1958. And I may have messed up the year. It's in that realm. With a chunk knocked out of the fiberglass on the nose. I have no idea how to fix it. There were only 588 Packard Hawks built. No replacement parts are available. I don't imagine. But fiberglass is one of those materials that is very forgiving and easy to work with. It's usually a matter of building some kind of form in it, and the form can be as simple as something out of cardboard. I don't have a good idea where your chunk is missing or how extensive it is, but you can usually build some kind of form to lay the fiberglass on, and you don't have to let the cardboard adhere to it. You can cover it with saran wrap and everything else to prevent that becoming part of your car as well. But as soon as you have a form, then you have something that you can start to lay fiberglass mat on. And usually, I know some guys who've built entire cars out of fiberglass themselves, and they tend to avoid using like the cloth type mat, because they say that texture, for whatever reason, wants to keep coming back and showing itself in the top coat. So they often recommend using the random strand mat, fiberglass mat, and build that up in layers, and working that out. I don't know. What's your experience?
Well, I have very little fiberglass repair experience, but yeah, it's exactly that. Just take mat and resin and build it up.
Yeah.
Backer, form, something to back it. If it's a hole, right, you got to hold it there somehow. But yeah, it's just building it back up with some fiberglass, and it's not a hard repair.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a crafty kind of experience from my experience with it. It's more. But as soon as you have something, as soon as you get something structural there, you get the thickness built up, and then you start to treat it like regular bodywork. You can block sand it out, you can shape it, you can, and you can top coat it with body fillers and prime and paint it much like you would with metal. But it's just initially getting that initial shape, and and like I say, you can build a form to kind of lay your mat on to get started.
Right. That shouldn't be a very hard repair at all.
No, I agree. It's not a hard repair. It does take a little bit of time, a little futzing.
It's kind of fun.
You wear
gloves.
Wear gloves.
Wear gloves. Wear lots of gloves.
Fiberglass mat can get really itchy, and resin can get really sticky. And
look, the old customizers of years gone. The Ed Ross and stuff used to build all their cars out of just fiberglass, and they would spray. They had chop guns where they would just spray random shapes, and you looked at some of the things they started. What they built show winning rods with, and it looked like a porcupine by the time they were done spraying with a chop gun. And you can grind. It was just after you get enough material there, you can shape it and form it to whatever you want. So yeah, just do a little bit of research on the front end. Make sure you're using the right. There is a couple of different resins you can use. Some have like a paraffin that wants to come to the surface to supposedly tack it off. But if you're going to be working for an auto body stuff, you want an auto body type fiberglass resin where it doesn't have the paraffins in it that are so you can build it up additional layers. So if you just get something that's made for auto body, you should be fine. Okay, Greg writes, I'm replacing the body bushings on a 1972 Buick A body, so that would be a Grand Sport. He's doing it this winter. He plans to lift the body off the frame just enough to replace the bushings. Any concern about the windshield or the back glass when this is done? I suppose he's worried about it cracking, or he plans to roll the side windows down all the way. Thanks.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there'd be any problem with that
No.
at all.
Yeah,
Really.
usually that windshield opening is structural enough. If you're only lifting, you don't have to, you can replace all the body mounts without taking the whole car off the frame. And you just have to get it up, half inch, so you can slide the old mount out and get the new mounts in. Yeah, the only thing you need to do is make sure that the whole body is free from you loosen all them. I know some guys like on the Novas and stuff where it's a unibody car. They used to do just one side at a time, and then they loosen up the ones on the other side, but they remove them off. You remove the bolts off one side, lift it up just a little bit, so they can take out all the.
You don't want to do them all at the same time on one of those.
So yeah, you can run into trouble too, but no, not a. It's a big 72 A body. It's going to be a full frame car. You're not going to run into trouble like you would with a unibody car.
Like I said, just make sure everything's loose.
Yeah,
So you're not twisting.
loose there, and we talked a little bit earlier that things like the steering column could be cut. You might want to pull a rag joint or disconnect the steering column from the gearbox, just because you might. If you're raising it up, enough, there could be some binding and stuff in there.
Fighting that. Yeah.
And you don't want anything to have to fight with you. The hoses and tranny lines and stuff like that should all flex, enough to do it. But it shouldn't be a big issue.
No, go after it.
Yeah. And I wouldn't worry about any of the glass. I think the glass will be, you're smart to probably roll down the side glass and it's not going to be a big deal. And the windshield and the back window are not, those openings aren't going to flex enough. Unless, of course, your car was so rusted out that it had a lot of flex to it. But I'm not suspecting that's the case because you're talking about replacing bushings and not the whole floor kind of deal. So. When it comes to repainting a 90s GM pickup with the water-based primer and shedding finish top coat. So he has a 90s pickup it's a repaint. Where does a person start? Strip off all the old finish. So he's losing his clear coat, and he's concerned with the water-based primer that's underneath. Or strip off the old finish, or have I have voids that are all the way down to bare metal on the hood and the fender. So he's lost enough of the clear coat and finish that he's already down to bare metal. So he's wondering what's the best way to start. This sounds like a good question for a professional body technician.
Well, it just so happens that I worked at a GM dealership in the 90s, and I refinished a lot of those vehicles. I worked at a GMC dealer, Pontiac dealer, so a lot of trucks, vans, Grand Ams, Grand Prix. Yeah, so peeler days, it was terrible.
That was when clear coats were early on.
I think the one he's probably got it's not the clear coat, it was the base coat letting go of the primer, so it would come all the way down. There were some that the clear coat degradation would just break down and be chalky, cloudy white, and then you see base coat. I think what he's got it was the paint all the way down to it was the clear and base down to the sealer. So I'm assuming it's the gray sealer that's on there. You want to remove all the paint, because if you don't, it's probably going to come off sometime. Eventually. I mean, you may get lucky and leave it, but when we had to do it under warranty, we take all the top surfaces down to the body side moldings, below that, usually not a problem. And we'd actually strip them all with a razor blade, a razor blade handle. You just put a razor blade in a razor blade handle, you just, paint comes flying right off.
Wow.
Some of them you can put tape on, and pull the tape right off, or pull the paint right off of the tape. But yeah, we'd strip them with a razor blade. The whole car down to the side moldings. And all you have to do is prep what's left there. The primer is good. If it's getting a little chalky from the UV exposure, just sand it down past where it's not, or go all the way down the metal. You got some bare metal spots, you'll have to feather that out. But what's there is probably going to be good. It's the base coat on top that it's letting go of it. And I think what the issue was, the manufacturer's going to save a lot of money by putting on as little a paint as that they need to, and it depends on the supplier. They dictated so. I'm not going to call it any manufacturer, but say the paint vendor, the supplier said they tell them what they need to do and apply, and if they can save a little bit on every car, then they save a ton of money. So I think they kind of cheaped out on the clear, because the clear is where you get the protection, and it was thin. It would go through, and the base coat's not going to stand up to UV at all. It goes right through and it stops at the sealer, and that's where it was letting go. But yeah, that was a time where I was painting a lot of completes under warranty because of that. Yeah, don't worry about that primer that's on it. Sand off the chalkiness, get down to some good primer for a good base. You can leave it there. You don't have to take it down to metal. But where there is metal spaces, just feather it out so you can, you can reprime it, go from there. But
and then probably, as soon as you get it, the surface all prepped, hit it with like a good epoxy primer, or
absolutely. If you're not going to use an epoxy primer, you're probably going to use some sort of etch primer. You don't necessarily want to use both. You don't want to use an etch and epoxy. It depends on the manufacturer. Some will allow it, a lot will not, because they don't. Epoxies and etches, the acids don't play nice together, so it doesn't work.
Okay.
So one or the other. Probably for our classic cars, epoxy is probably the way to go. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Terry. Sure. Carl writes, how do you repair ABS body parts where they're no more made? Reference 1965 Cord 810 built in Tulsa, Oklahoma, one of 97 production.
Wow.
That's a good one. I know there are, when you're saying repair the ABS body parts, either cracked or torn, there are ways to have those welded. There's even some products out there that you can't just glue it together. Usually it involves using some kind of backer or some kind of means to hold it together.
Yep. That wouldn't be any different from the ABS plastics or any other plastics today that get repaired. So plastic welding is really popular, and it really works really well. You got to make sure you're using the right. So ABS, you already know what the plastic is, so you got to use that filler or the like the plastic
welding rod.
Yeah. But that's for something like I'm assuming that's probably an exterior piece, so it's got to look good.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't necessarily. You could weld it just to hold it together, and then you could repair the outside, the exterior for the.
You could make a not so pretty repair on the inside.
On the backside, who cares?
But then go and finish the top like you normally would.
But there are plastic repair materials for that. If you don't have a welder, there's ways to, you V out the crack and you use backing. There's backing. There's adhesives for that, and then you beat it out to the back and you start filling that void up, and gradually you want it tapered out as best as possible. The steeper it is, it may ghost on you a little bit. You might see that repair, but there's products to fix that stuff. So it's doable for sure.
And
Unless it's textured, then it's a whole different story.
yeah,
You have to worry about trying to duplicate the texture, which can be done. A little tougher, but it can be done.
yep. Yep, and we've done some recreate. I know like Sim makes some like texture products to recreate like pebble grains and stuff like that. And it works. I know guys that have used it, and we used it to make some repairs on some of the plastic parts on this car even, and it worked really good. Um, but it takes some fiddling with it to figure out how to get the grain or structure you want out of it. Um, but yeah, you can make those kind of repairs. If there's a chunk missing, then you're in a point where you're probably going to have to recreate the part or the piece in fiberglass and use what you have as the basis for creating a mold or something. Because if it's just a tear, yeah, you can repair the tear. If there's a piece missing out of your ABS, then you're into a different ball game where you're going to have to actually I doubt there's any out there, but after you've tried to find a source, then go to the process of recreating the panel using that as a means to make a fiberglass mold is how I'd approach it.
Yeah, I think it would be doable. And even a missing part, you could probably build up with some plastic repair material. I would try it. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, you got nothing. You got nothing to lose by trying.
Yeah.
Ronald writes that he's replacing the floor pan on a 1960 Falcon. The old floor pan is 20 gauge, and the new pan is 18 gauge. He's prepped and cleaned, and I believe I have a good ground. I'm using a recommended settings on my welder for 18 gauge steel, and every time I try to weld the new floor pan to 20 gauge metal, I seem to be welding through. Any suggestions? Um, and it's yeah, you can do that, especially welding old metal. A lot of times it can become an issue. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind is turn your heat down or get your torch moving faster, so you're not building up. Or to weld, maybe you're just if you're doing a plug weld or heat in one area, so you should maybe skip from one area to another, and then come back, kind of thing. So it has a little bit of time to cool. The other thing to do is to prevent it from burning through is to apply what they call a weld backer, and that's just usually a copper plate. If you even go to Amazon, look up like welding backer plates. They're just like a copper plate that they come with a handle attached to them, and you can put that underneath or have a friend hold it underneath while you're welding on the top. I've even vice gripped plates and I'm I can never find anybody to help me. So, so usually what I do is just grab a big vice grip, and I'll just, if I have some place where I'm worried about burning through, I take, it's like about an 1/8 inch thick copper plate, and you just kind of clamp that on the backside, and that'll absorb. It'll prevent you from burning through. And if it does, if you do burn through and actually weld to that plate, it's copper, so if you just turn it a little bit, it'll copper doesn't want to stick to steel even if you weld it, so it just turn the plate a little bit and it pops right off. So that works in those situations. They also make some pliers with copper plates on them for just doing plug welds and stuff like that. And I think if you go to Amazon, just type, and just did a search for welding backer plates, you're going to find that they even have some magnetic ones that you can put like on the backside with little arm that holds the copper plate up to the weld area, and that'll make it real simple for you, and you won't have to worry about burning through. Then I know when I have like really thin metal where I'm worried about it, I'll use a backer plate and have no issues. And then sometimes I'll make my own. I'll grab some plumbing fittings and smash them out flat and use those as.
I've used pennies.
Well,
defacing. No, I'm sorry. No, I didn't. I've not done that.
So, yeah, you can use a few things that'll get you through. But yeah, if you can't get it with just, either spot welding or stitch welding or moving around and not building up too much heat in any one area, then try the backer plates. I think that'll get you where you need to be.
You know what I would do with that?
Sure.
You guys know what I would do with that?
You'd you're not going to say
I glue it in.
Yeah.
Is that got a frame? 60 Falcon, is that on a
No.
frame?
That
or
is a unibody car.
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't do that then. Never mind.
Yeah. Terry was alluding to using panel bond. He's he's a body technician. He's a big fan of panel bond. It's not good for. It's good for
Structural stuff.
It's not good for structural stuff. You're better off to weld those things on. And most of the bodies on a Falcon is structural. So
Yeah, I guess that's out. I do like it though.
But it is, there are, I know guys that do a lot of stuff with panel bond. It's still, to me, it's like even a lot of the manufacturers recommend still putting some tacks or some mechanical means in.
It's true.
The corners to keep it from, because like with the way to remove panel bond is like putting heat on it, and what is it, like 400 degrees or something like that, and
Yeah, I've never had the electrician doing it anyway. But,
all right, oh yeah, you clarified. He's burning through the 20 gauge. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, let's see. Set the points and gap. It's our producer is reminding us if you go down right below here, there's a little article on setting your points and dwell. It's free download. Just go ahead and enter. You can get that just right below the box down here. Also, if you want to ask us any questions, it's right below here in the question box. Not the little chat button that's off in the corner down here. So that's to talk to our member services people. While they're very helpful, they'll still refer any questions that you have to us. So Ronald writes he has a 1958 truck with pretty good paint on it and a few rust spots. After I fix the rust spots, should I sand and epoxy the whole truck? What's the process? So apparently he wants to fix the rust spots and then get his truck ready for doing a complete paint job. It sounds like. What do you recommend, Terry?
well, it depends on what kind of shape the original paint and the rest of the original paint is in. If it's in good shape, yeah, you can just prep that, abrade that.
Use the original paint.
Sure, yeah, if it's in good shape, why not use it? It all depends on how far you want to go. So that's probably lacquer again, and I'm always going to go back to it. So you're going to put a much better catalyzed product over the top of it, and unfortunately, that lacquer is going to be the weak link of any future problem. So if you feel like a lot of labor, take it off. But if it's in good shape, you can leave it on there. You can go right over it for sure. Epoxy the whole thing. I don't know if you really need to. You probably want to seal off that paint, whether it's epoxy or not. There's real good urethane primers, and that's all you really need. I'd put the epoxy over the bare metal parts for sure. But
I tend to I tend to overdo things, so I usually epoxy everything before.
Epoxy everything?
I use epoxy as my sealer,
And there's epoxy sealers.
and and so it's just a way of prevent anything from underneath the paint and anything that might be embedded in the old paint coming up later.
Sure.
But I have had the argument. I tend to also get rid of all the old paint before I paint a car.
For sure.
But
Yeah, I would too.
but I have friends who have got beautiful cars, and they're painting 1940s, 1930s cars, where they're just sanding the finish down and top end and sealing that and paint. And their cars have lasted for years. Is that wrong? No.
Mhm.
I always contend paint breaks down over time, and even though you can seal it up, it's still got a chemical adhesion. It has a mechanical adhesion, but it also has a chemical adhesion to that, and that's going to break down. But maybe I've been wrong all these years.
No. Well, yes, Mark, you've been
Yes,
wrong.
I've been wrong about many things.
Well, how it's going to break down from UV exposure.
Yeah.
I mean, even catalyzed products, paint clears, they're going to break down eventually.
Yep.
When we give lifetime warranties on repairs, it's not our lifetime, it's the car's lifetime.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's factored in. I say typically a car's lifetime is what, 12 to 15 years about standard.
Probably
So,
for a lot of cars.
For a paint company to say it's lifetime warranty, we're honestly rolling the dice. If you own that car that long and it fails, they'll pay to fix it. But typically they're not around that long, so
Right.
we don't have to do it. So it's a car lifetime, even though it's lifetime warranty. But eventually, UV light's going to break it down.
Ronald, you go ahead and make those repairs. Go ahead, if you want, sand the whole body down, get it prepped, and put on a good primer sealer or an epoxy primer, and then you can, do the rest of your top
A good
post-crush.
2-component primer, so a
Yep.
catalyzer hardened.
Yep.
Yeah.
He also writes, what sandpaper should I use? If you sand an old paint to get that ready for,
If you're going to prime,
yeah,
400 grit. Yeah.
400 grit.
Yeah, 400 grit, and it's that would be P grades. They change grading systems, North America grading versus a European grading.
No?
Years ago we would just final sand a car with 320, and that was good enough. 320 now it's not 320
Right.
Of the past. It's it's much coarser.
Mhm.
I think. And it's not a relative scale either. It's kind of weird. I think 180 is the equal for both. And as you get finer in the P grades, your 400 is probably a 600 versus the old grade. So you have to actually go finer. We prep probably if you're priming 400 grit. That's more than fine. If you're going right to base coat, it's 600 grit ish. One panels 800 ish. So we have 1,000 grit, 1,200, 1,500. They have 5,000 grit. But that's for finishing. But for prepping, 400 grit. If you're priming and sealing, plenty good. I wouldn't go much coarser than that.
When did they make the transition to P grade sandpapers?
I want to say it was probably somewhere late 80s, early 90s ish, somewhere in there. Yeah, and they'll usually say P on it.
Yep. It says P 400.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I don't think you'll find any of the old North American grade crits around. Maybe in woodworking, I don't know, but in automotive, you're not gonna find that.
Lee asks, he has on muscle cars, are Resto-mods finally worth as much as the factory restored car. So yeah, it comes down to Resto-mod, uh, factory restored,
I'm staying out of it.
or
I'm out of this one. You know where I want to go.
oh,
with
come
it.
on, we
I'd
can all
still
have
say-
we can all have a voice in this one. We'll start with you, Terry.
Factory.
Resto-mod versus in the
No.
value of a Resto-mod versus
It's
a
worth
factory.
whatever some people pay for it. So,
Yeah,
it's what you like.
yeah, I mean, as far as, exactly, it's like, what do you
Well,
like? I mean, if
factory is getting
drivability,
harder.
I mean,
It's harder. Factory original stuff is harder. I mean, you can make anything,
right.
resto,
Mhm.
but find original factory stuff, I think it's harder to find it. So that's what I like. But what is it catching up for value? It's very subjective.
Yeah.
It really is.
And then it is really what you like. I mean, drivability. I mean, yeah, I mean, Resto-mod's going to
Yeah.
be, but value wise, I still say I agree with you. You know,
Yeah,
restoration.
I get grief
Factory
for
restorations, I would say have a better value.
I get grief for having points.
I'll take the other side of the fence here.
Oh, okay.
I'll say is it depends on the quality of the components. Are we, if we're talking the value, if I'm putting in if I build a Resto-mod with we'll use a 68 Firebird for example.
Why are you doing it to that?
if it has big performance brakes, has a fully independent four-wheel suspension, has high quality components throughout, has nice leather upholstery, do I think a well done car is worth more than a complete factory restored car? Yes, without question.
Yeah.
But
Drivability-wise, for
that
sure.
guy has dumped a crap load of money to get it to that point. Therefore, is it oranges and oranges and apples and oranges?
Mhm.
Is it, you're comparing two different things at this point. Um, so yeah, it's the quality of the components. Just because somebody puts disc brake kit on their 68 Firebird doesn't mean it's a Resto-mod either. It may, that's the kind of thing that can be switched back and forth without hurting or improving the value of the car, whatever. It's about drivability at that point. But as far as a complete Resto-mod where you're altering, engine, drivetrain, suspension, interior, and building a car that is not like anything that ever came from the factory, it's no longer a 68 Firebird. It's something other than that. So to put it on to try to evaluate the price of that versus a restored car, to me, yeah, it's
Not really
two
comparable.
different things actually. So it depends what you want to use your car for, and it depends how you want to enjoy it. And most of my cars are. I have both.
You have
I
Resto-mod
have
and-
street rods, and I have cars that are mostly stock. But I know like my 35 Chev would not be any fun to drive in its stock form. It had, I could cruise into the parades and I could go local, but I couldn't really enjoy the car the way I like to enjoy it without, 400 horsepower and, a few other things there too.
a lot more drivability.
So it's about drivability, it's about performance, but how you want to enjoy your car. Is one better than the other? No, it's a personal expression.
I'm going to ask a favor.
You what?
I'm going to ask a favor. Just
Sure.
don't take a complete original car and make it into a Resto-mod. Take a one that's already missing
Exactly.
pieces. I just
Okay, Terry is a die-hard restoration, authentic restoration
Wow.
kind of guy. So we're
Wow.
gonna cut him that slack. Is it worth as much Yeah, we can all
No,
we can
I'm
disagree.
fine with it. I'm fine with it. Yeah, I do get grief over it, but
Yes, we give him a little bit of heat about his skinny little tires on his
Yeah.
Firebird, and he's like,
Armstrong steering.
And his drum brakes.
and he still, yeah, didn't upgrade. He still got
It's got beautiful drum brakes on it.
drum
that's for
brakes,
sure.
non-power drum brakes.
Non-powered.
Who needs that?
Okay, Stephen writes, is there anyone in Denver that can rebuild a 249 engine? Or can you tell me where to get a rebuild kit? A 249. All right, now the big quiz. Which car had a 249 engine?
Yes.
Quick, come on,
You're
guys.
going to have to tell us that one.
Quick, guys.
Google going to tell us?
249 is
Tell us
not
in the
sounding
comments.
familiar to me.
What's it in?
Yeah. All right.
Help us out.
Yeah, Steven, you're stumping us here. What is here? Yeah, we're all like going 249 engine. What's that in? And let's see, Army Corps 249 Engineer Battalion. See, this is where you get us. You got to give us a little more info here, guys. Why would Google decide that I needed a
Engineer.
two engine for my fire department? Nope, I'm not coming up here.
Well, it says 249 Dodge.
Is it a Dodge?
Look like it. Dorman.
No,
Engine oil
that's
pan.
an oil pan.
249.
249.
Oh, that's
just a part number.
That's a part number.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's part number.
Yeah.
You stumped us. 249.
Oh, here it comes.
Yeah.
Here's the answer.
Yeah, that's of course that was going to happen. Yeah, you've got us right now. We're all, if anybody else can pipe in before we can hear from Stephen, what car is a 249 engine in? With that said, is there? Give us the information. Let's see if
I'm coming up with some Pontiac straight eights.
Pontiac straight 8, 249 engine.
There's an option there. Let's see.
As far as rebuild kits, I don't. While we struggle to figure out what car was the 249 engine, of course, there's Falcon Motors or Falcon Global or and also Packard Industries. If you go on eBay and almost search for any engine, whatever, they come up a lot of times. There's Cantor Motor Parts. There is Eggy Motor Parts. Eggy manufactures a lot of engine rebuild parts for classic cars. Those are the big ones that come to mind. There are other, if again, it would help us know the make and model of make model of the car. But those are my go-to resources for engine rebuild parts. It's usually like Aggie Motors, the Aggie Motors and Cantor. And if it's not those guys, you can also go to, check out the Falcon Globals and the Packard Industry stuff. There are, to me, I've never ran into a motor that I couldn't eventually find parts for. Some of them were a bit more struggle than others. But there are, with a little bit of research, you're gonna find those resources that are out there. Let's see, I've got a quick link here. Maybe somebody else is sending me on to.
Well, maybe it was a Pontiac straight eight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe it is. And of course, it went dead as soon as I brought it up. So yeah, and I would really, check into Eggy, check into Cantor, check into those resources. Also, if our link is right here and it is a Pontiac kind of deal, yeah, look into, some of the Pontiac restoration shops. A lot of times they'll have resources to get the part. Usually with engine rebuilds, there's so many rod bearings and main bearings and those things I've never had an issue getting. It's usually things like head gaskets that tend to really throw everybody for a loop because it's specific to an engine size and those can often be the hardest things to get a hold of, but there are companies that will, that have dies. They don't necessarily always have them in stock, but they have the dies to create the head gasket you need. I know Eggy's one of those. They can make you a copper head gasket for a 1931 DeSoto, where you don't need to go source vintage gaskets for it. If it's an all metal gasket, vintage head gasket, I'm fine with. It's the composite ones that I think tend to break down over in time, and my personal thing is I wouldn't invest in buying a 50-year-old head gasket if it's a composite, because then the odds are it's going to fail on you anyways.
Agree. What he said.
Oh, look at this. James wants to know, what cars do Ross and Terry have? All right, Ross, here you go. What cars doesn't Ross have? Usually he's got like several cars that are visiting him on any given moment, and then he has like a couple that he.
My stock is down right now. So. I have a 68 Chevelle, 1968 Chevelle SS, and that's my prized possession. And then I have a 97 Formula FTA Formula Trans Am that is original mile car, LT1 motor in it.
Well, I just happen to have a 68 Firebird, which somebody's been mocking me about. That's the only one I have right now. I guess I have a 2017 Ford Fusion, but that's not a classic car. No, 68 Firebird. It's all original. Imagine that. I tried to make it how it came off the showroom floor, and I'm living with it, and I like it. But that's it for me. That's my third Firebird, and I've always been a Firebird guy. All my buddies had Camaros and Chevelles, and I didn't want to be like them. So
yeah. See, he's young, so he don't mind those manual power steering.
I'm young.
Manual steering, manual brakes, manual.
You can handle the stress when you're trying to stop.
I do like the radio. The radio's it's nice having a radio. It's not a radio delete, at least, and it does have a heater.
Yeah.
Which I do need. I don't need enough.
More and more all the time.
I've never had a heater, so.
Well, yeah.
You're overrated.
Heaters are?
Yeah.
I used mine this fall, that's for sure.
Well, I know Terry's car is bone stock, incredibly bone stock, and painfully bone stock.
Painfully.
Oh. Ross is less. While his car is very stock appearing.
It once was a 68 Chevelle.
It was a 68 Chevelle SS.
It's actually an original SS.
Well, it was
body numbers matching.
It now boasts well over 396.
Well over 396
cubic inch engine, 700 and some horse, and it runs on E85, so
which is way cheaper than racing gas.
And so we kid him,
which I had to buy a little bit of to keep mine going because it is stock.
We kid him that he's going green on us. He's got
There's no emission.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they want to test me, they can.
Okay, we have a question from a question that came in, and it's asking, my truck has rot on the bottom of the A posts, so the hinge post, with the driver's side being the worst. The rot extends about 8 inches into the rockers. The rear cab corners don't seem to be as badly impacted. I need to know if the repair of this can be done with the cab on. I don't know any other rotten areas and was told that the box was off for a paint job 6 years ago. They said they did not remove the cab. It was more extensive than they wanted. If there's a rule of thumb as to the extensiveness of a repair of a cab, I'd like to make it solid driver, but cannot afford an extensive rebuild and crazy paint job expenses. Thoughts on keeping this as a budget while doing enough to keep it drivable for many more years. He has truck is a 1966 Chevy K20, a 3/4 ton, four wheel drive, 3/4 ton. Yeah,
Nice.
it's a K truck.
Nice truck.
You got to be able to have
Yeah.
replacement parts for that now. I bet you there's
Oh,
replacement,
yeah.
side panels for that. I'd cut out the old and weld in a new.
You should be able to do it with the cab on there.
Oh, with the cab on for sure. Yeah, you can do it with the cab
With the
on.
cab on.
Sure.
Yeah.
If your intention, if you want a Concourse restoration, I'd say, yeah, you got to take your cab off. But if you're just trying to keep it on the road and trying to make some effective repairs, yeah, you can
Keep the door on.
As long as the body supports
keep
it.
keep the door so it actually hinges without pulling up. Yeah, you can make those repairs. See what there's available in pet. I know LMC has an extensive line. Mac has a lot of parts. There's a few other Chevy truck
Direct,
places
maybe,
Automotive
that make
Direct.
reproduction sheet metal for that.
It's a common enough vehicle where there's
Yeah.
reproduction sheet metal for that.
Oh,
For
Yeah,
sure.
and if all else fails, don't be afraid to go find a vintage junkyard. You'd be surprised how many of them are, where you can get good floor pans and shit out of them because, what the first thing that happens in a lot of the vintage junkyards around here is they push the dang trucks on their side, and then they take out all the axles and suspension, and then the truck sits there on its side, and the floor pans are beautiful. So with a sawzall and some time, you can get some nice patch panels without that are factory original. So there are alternatives, but yeah, I think you could.
Aftermarket parts are definitely available.
Yeah, I would say so. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's one of the more common.
Yeah,
Chevy,
I
especially
agree.
4-wheel drive ones are very common.
If a person with some reasonable DIY skills and tools, okay, that's us. What type of paint process would you recommend for a repaint of a 1965 model daily driver car? A 1965 daily driver. Clearly, you're not in Minnesota, Don. The reasonable DIY skills. What type of paint process would you recommend to repaint a 65? Yeah,
What type of paint process? So you think you're talking like a single stage paint or base coat clear coat paint
I'm thinking,
process?
yeah, I would guess for a paint process. He probably has a 1965 model that he wants to repaint.
Mm-hmm.
He's using the car as a daily driver, so he doesn't want any paints that are wouldn't hold up to daily driving. And probably going to do his own repairs. It's a DIY job, so I imagine it's just a matter of sanding the car down, putting on some kind of sealer, and
Depending on what kind of
sealer,
shape it's in, yeah.
acrylic, urethane,
Acrylic.
catalyzed paint, and it'll hold up just fine. Anything you're buying now is it's gonna hold up for a daily driver for sure.
Yeah, acrylic urethanes are, I'm big fan of those because, it used to be, when I started painting, enamels were kind of like, old vintage homemade pudding where they had a nice shiny layer on top. But as soon as you broke through that, enamels used to be just dull. And, but now, the paint technology has evolved and, the products we have to buff them out have evolved. So it's like a good urethane paint job. You can spray it, you can spray it in your own garage and cut and buff it and achieve, professional quality results. There's no reason you can't get there. Um, but again, like anything, it's all a learning process to getting there. So I'd say a good, something to seal it up, like either a sealer, start by sanding the whole car down. If you're going to repaint the whole car, sand the whole car down. We talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Your preparation is key. Clean, sand it, prep it. I mean, de-trim as much as you want to, or you're going to mask off all the trim, or daily driver. I don't know. You might just mask it all up. It might be like a Mako paint job where it's just masked off, and if you're lucky, some things get masked off, and they're very good at painting complete paint jobs. But
Yep.
the details are, you want details, you're gonna pay for it. But yeah, it's doable. So clean, prep, get a halfway decent catalyzed product, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and it'd be like acrylic urethane paint, and that'd be catalyzed paint, and that should do the job for you. Neville asked, "Hi, there is a set of basic tools I need to start restoring my classic Mini. It needs new panels, of course, welding, etc., grinder, welder, air compressor. What else? What are the basic tools to do, regardless of whether it's a Mini or any
Yeah,
car.
they'd all be the same pretty much.
Terry will start with like a good bottle of,
Liquor?
liquor.
No. Is that where you're going with it? You're talking a good package of 2-part of epoxy
I'm thinking
panel bond?
you were going to go you were going to go panel bond and glue the whole car together.
All together.
Well, wouldn't be opposed to it. Yeah, laugh at me.
We are not going to laugh at you. We're going to make you do a demonstration. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
The basic tools you need to restore a car. You've kind of hit on a lot of them. Air compressor really helps. Grinders, welders. I don't. If you're just starting out and you're not familiar with it, MIG welder is the way to go.
Some really nice 110 MIG welders out there too.
Yeah,
that aren't that expensive.
they've come so far.
Yeah.
I remember when wire feed was the thing that you dreamed of owning, and now they're affordable and they're high quality, and they run on 110.
Yep.
And so we touched on a lot of the basic things. You'll need sanding boards and sandpaper. And what I would just kind of don't run out and buy every tool you need before you start. Just start and then figure out what tools you're going to need to proceed. And that way, you're not buying tools that'll never get used. And depending on if you're only going to do one car you're ever going to restore, you don't need to buy professional quality tools. You need cars to restore, tools to restore. I tend to buy the best tools I can afford. And, and for some things, and then if it's just a job that I'm going to do once or twice, I'll run down to Harbor Freight and spend a fraction of what I would spend on a pro tool.
Yep.
So, and that would be my recommendation. Don't go out and buy every tool up front that you're going to need. You are going to, if you're going to restore a whole car, you are going to need an air compressor. But, so nowadays, so many tools that I used to always need an air compressor for are available in high quality
Cordless now.
cordless battery powered
Which
stuff.
are great.
And so there are alternatives where once we needed just air tools. Now it's not as needed as it once was. You could do it without air tools, but you're gonna have a hard time painting a car without air tools,
That's
without
true.
a compressor.
Need that.
I've seen them brushed and rolled. I guess I have, but no.
There you go. Um, Jordy writes, I own a 1965 Rambler Marlin, 327 3-speed, flash-o-matic transmission. I need to rework the wiring harness. Who makes a good replacement? Any suggestions? That's a good one. Well, without doing any research, there are guys that just they're not big, high, because there's not much demand for 1965 Rambler Marlin wiring harnesses. Um, you're probably not going to find anybody that stocks them. But that's not to say there aren't people that create wiring harnesses. And I'm quick trying to think through my memory on there. I know there's a number of guys out there that build specifically vintage wiring harnesses. I don't know if they'll have one for your car, but they specialize in having all the right connections and all the factory original ends and everything else. If you're lucky enough to have uh, a common car, like let's say like a '68 Firebird, you can probably go buy one of those harnesses.
Yeah, you can, because I did.
And or a Chevelle, a '68 Chevelle, you can go buy that wiring harness. And but for the guys that that have the little bit different stuff, we get used to finding the people that will make one, and for that, I know there's somebody out there. There's probably a number of people out there that will build a custom uh, harness for you, but they're also not cheap either.
It depends too if he wants to keep it stock because there are so many aftermarket.
Oh yeah, if you're not dead set on having a 100% original wiring harness, there's a ton of kits out there.
Yeah.
From Ron Francis and American Auto Wire and Paintless, and
Painless.
there's just a number of companies out there that will give you, a more modern fuse box. They'll give you more circuits and a much better electrical system than stock, but it wouldn't be stock.
Not stock.
And Terry will look down at you.
I like my glass tube fuses. What's wrong with those?
I have the same thing, but I wish I would have done something different.
I wish you would have too.
All right. I will do a little bit of research after we get off and type that into my reply into the comment area tomorrow. But offhand, I know there are people that do it, and I know there are good alternatives. It's a matter of what you want. If you're an aftermarket fuse box, and most guys don't care because it's tucked up under the dash, and they're not going to worry about it. There's some awesome aftermarket stuff out there. If you want a 100% original, I'll see what I can come up with for an answer for you and type it in the comments area below. And then we've got Bill. He asked, can you answer how to fix the metal strip across the side of the roof holding the light? It is bent down from the roof panel. Can you answer how to Bill, we need to know your year, make, model. It helps. Can you answer how to fix the metal strip across the side of my roof holding the light.
Interior, maybe?
It is bent down from the roof panel.
Oh, yeah. Probably the mirror, the metal bracket, maybe.
Metal trim along the side of the roof, like that side of the headliner? Does it maybe hold some sort of upper light or an interior light? Is that what it might?
Down my roof holding the light. Dang, we're
Yeah.
scratching our head here.
Yeah.
It is bent down from
Yeah.
the roof panel. Can you answer? We're not quite sure, Bill. Top of the roof. Bill, what's your year, make, model of car? Please, Bill. 71 Mach 1. Oh, that helps us. Okay, 71 Mach 1. Yes, the top of the roof. Okay, can you answer how to fix the metal strip on the side of the roof holding the light? 71 Mach 1. Oh, gosh, wish I had Bob here, my 71 Mach 1 expert. The interior ceiling with light. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's
dome light is. Is that what he's talking about?
okay. Is this
It must be the dome light. Maybe it's the metal piece that it's mounted
It
to,
is.
and it's not it's come loose from the side of the roof.
it's bent down
bent
from the roof panel. The in the yeah, I'm not familiar enough with the 71 interior
I'm not
roof
either.
panel.
It's probably attached to one of the cross braces that goes across, so maybe that's pulled down or bent down.
Yeah, because he says it's metal strip across the side
The side.
of my roof holding the light. So maybe it's come down on, because it would have to go up and over, right? I mean,
Yeah,
So they
attached
use that,
on the
yeah.
sides maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, if it's an interior trim piece, you know, if it's a trim piece, I would guess that you could probably get a new one. If it's the piece behind the headliner or something that's
Structure.
So that's what
holding
it sounds
that's
structured.
holding on to a light.
You got to bend it back somehow.
You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta bend it back and you know
I wonder how it got bent down.
I don't know. Could be could be a wild
It would
time.
take some force to do that, I would think.
He says we're on track. Okay,
Are we
Bill.
getting close?
You know, if it's behind the head, you know, I'm not.
That's what it sounds
If
like.
it's behind the headliner,
Structural piece that's behind the headliner.
if it's a structural piece that's behind the headliner that's holding
Dome light.
the
Where the dome light
light,
attaches.
and that's bent down.
How do you push it back up? Because you got the
Well, of course
Without-
you're gonna pull a headliner out, but you usually want to push it back further than, and it's
Right.
gonna want to spring back. Yeah, it may be the case where you've got to do
It's hard to push it further when the roof's in the way.
right. And
You could detach it from its mounts on the side, straighten it, and put it back up.
Yeah, if
But
it
that's a matter
detaches,
of
if it's
cutting
not,
spot welds and rewelding it.
It's
Or you
all-
could panel bond it.
Hey, no, that's not a bad idea.
You actually
You
could.
probably push it up and hold it there
Cut
and
it-
panel
cut-
on it up.
Well, I wouldn't panel bond it to the roof, but what I'm saying is cut out the spot welds holding that bow across the
Panel bond
side.
it back on.
That is if it's a single piece and not part of it. Cut it out, straighten it, panel mount it back up on the sides. You wouldn't have to weld it, but you could panel mount it. Yeah, without seeing it.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. I don't think you could push it back up because you have to go further than where you want it to end up, and you got the roof in the way.
Because metal wants to spring back. So
Yeah.
it would Bill, you know, without seeing it, we're all kind of like we're scratching our heads a little bit. But it's I don't know if there's an easy answer for you other than try to. It's 3 inches wide, formed of metal.
Yeah. One of the roof posts. inner structure.
Advice is panel glue. Panel glue might get the job done.
You could even cut out one side, bring it down enough where you can bend it where you need it, and put it back up, and and glue it out one side.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a welder, weld it, but I wouldn't hesitate.
We're guessing the type of repair that we need to do it, but we're not 100% sure, Bill. So take our advice with a grain of salt. And with that, guys, I want to say thank you very much for stopping by tonight. As always, you kept us floored with a lot of really good questions. Good conversation. Thankful to be joined with Ross and Terry tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We're always thankful to get their expertise as well on this project. Now that winter's finally here, make sure that you got your shop good and tight. We found out today that mice will eat Irish Spring. They've chomped off half this bar sitting on the workbench here. So not only did we find they like the taste of Irish Spring, they have fresh breath, and they're not afraid of it. So
it doesn't work.
If somebody tells you that this is what you put in your car, it will keep them full for a while. So with that, guys, thanks again for coming out. See you again next month.